What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another preview stream for you guys. It's felt like ages that we've seen Spurs play. It's only been 2 weeks, but I think last week we were all missing our Spurs fix, and we definitely get it this weekend, and it doesn't get any easier. We would have said it's probably a gimme game a couple of weeks ago, but now Oliver Glasner is in charge at Crystal Palace. I think it is considerably harder this game coming into it. They play three at the back. We struggle against three at the back, but we'll get into that in a bit. We've got the match preview coming up a bit later in the stream. We're going to start off with a Tottenham update for you guys today. And the first story we've got to is about Conor Gallagher once again, as Sammy Mockbell says that Tottenham and other Premier League clubs are monitoring the situation of Conor Gallagher closely with a view of launching a summer move for the midfielder if progress over the new contract with Chelsea continues to be halted as the player heads towards his last 12 months of his current deal. But Gallagher, who was raised as a Chelsea supporter, is yet to seriously contemplate a move away from Stamford Bridge and is prioritised staying with his boyhood club. However, Chelsea will want a minimum of £50 million for Gallagher if they were to sell, even if there are only 12 months left on his contract. I've said it time and time again, I don't really see this deal happening, and I don't really see that much of a space or a gap for him in the squad right now anyway.
I think I see a bit of a gap in terms of, depending on where we see Bentancur, can he be that number 8 in our midfield battling with Papa Sarr? I think that's what we want him for, and I do think he's perfect for that role. But I think there's just so many moving parts, as we've said so often. We know Gallagher is a massive Chelsea fan. We know that he's probably waiting for a better deal right now anyway. Is he going to get more money at Tottenham than he would have gotten if he rejects a deal at Chelsea? I don't think so. So that all points in the direction that it's very unlikely that any deal does get done. But if his contract situation does continue to rumble on, and maybe Tottenham are more willing than I think they are to, give him decent wages, then maybe there is a deal to be done. But I just think all those things coming together are just too unlikely.
I prefer to see Chelsea struggle with FFP, to be honest, and give them a get out of jail free card with money, with pure profit for Conor Gallagher, to be honest. How sweet would it be to see Chelsea drop a few points next year, or get docked a few points next year?
Wouldn't mind that, especially if Poch already under pressure. If he starts next season with a 10-point deduction, when he'll be sacked before the season starts. How exactly. Poch has got us on -10. How could he?
That would be great to see. I mean, look, I think anyone that signs Conor Gallagher, they're lucky. They've got a good player on their hands. I think he really is proving his worth at the moment, in the last month or so, providing some clutch moments for Chelsea. But I know Bentancur can play that 6 role, but I just much prefer him in the 8 role. I think he's much more used to it and much more adept to playing that role. I think we need in this summer, the midfielder that we're going to bring in, it has to be an out-and-out number 6, in my opinion.
I tell you where he would be a very good signing. It would be if he went to Liverpool. I think he'd really, well, actually, depending on who the new manager is, but I know under Klopp he would be a great signing. But other than that, I don't see too many clubs stumping up that kind of money for him. It's going to be difficult. Yeah, I don't think City will go for him. Maybe United, but is he going to go to United? I guess Mount went there, but I don't know. There's not that many clubs putting the money up for him. I do think he'll end up staying.
Yeah, it just depends on how much they actually need the money. Are they going to sign the contract with him when how desperate they are to bring in the money because of FFP? I think if FFP wasn't in question here, I think it would be a certainty that he'd be staying. But the FFP has brought all these questions up. That's why we're talking about him. Maybe
Newcastle could be a decent option, but again, they're not in a great position with FFP. So in terms of clubs who can afford him, I mean, apart from Tottenham, there's not too many.
Would you think that potentially a Man City could go for him?
I don't know. Depends. Will they cut their losses with Núñez after a year? Maybe. I don't
Probably
know.
But
I think then I don't think they're desperate to spend 50 million on Gallagher.
I agree. But I was looking at the FFP kind of standings a couple of nights ago, and Spurs and Man City are by clear the two that can spend the most amount of money this summer without being in any sort of danger of it. Yeah, but they're really stacked in midfield, aren't they, Man City? So I can't. Yeah, you're probably right. I can't see that going on. But let's finish off talking about the London Awards last night. And Spurs had 2 winners at the London Awards. And we'll first start talking about the Manager of the Year, as Ange Postecoglou has been named as Manager of the Year at the London Football Awards. He was up against Moyes, Arteta, Wellens of Leyton Orient, and Emma Hayes of Chelsea women's team as well. Ange Postecoglou was talking after. We've got an interview to bring you, which I guess we'll bring you both at the same time, and we'll talk about the goalkeeper award as well. As Vicario won goalkeeper of the award at the London Wars. The other nominees were Areola Leno, Mackenzie Arnold, and Sam Johnston. So it's such a strange awards, these London awards. Like, they're bringing up season-long awards in March. It doesn't really make too much. February doesn't really make much sense.
Absolutely no sense. I don't understand what is the point of this award. I think Ange alluded to it as well in his interview, which we'll see in a minute. But I don't get it. I don't get why they're giving out awards now if it's for the year. And if it's not going to include last year. I understand if it's January last year to January, like if you're taking the whole of 2023, okay, that kind of makes sense. But they're not. They're not taking anything that happened last season into account. So you're literally giving a manager of the last 7 months award. It's very, very odd. I don't really understand it at all. Maybe it's manager of the year from January to February, manager of the month, essentially, and saying year. I don't know. I don't really understand.
Anyway, let's go and hear from Ange Postecoglou and Vicario on winning their awards.
They don't hear it.
Can't hear it.
They don't hear it.
All right, I guess we'll try bring that guy back on for you, but I believe you cannot hear Ange Postecoglou.
Chat saying they can't hear it, so I can hear it. We could. I don't know.
Yeah, we could hear it, but the guys couldn't hear it.
Well, the first thing he said was it's bizarre, which I think we definitely have
definitely
to. It's
bizarre.
definitely bizarre. It's really odd. I don't get it. Why not just give these awards out later in the season? Why give them out now?
Or why not just do it for the last 12 months instead of just this season?
Or that. But in terms of if we're taking the award at face value, the best manager in London manager from the beginning of the season to now, does Ange deserve it?
No comment.
Why not? Why not?
Because Mikel Arteta is in a title challenge and Ange Postecoglou is in a top four challenge.
But Postecoglou, okay, where was Arteta after the same amount of time that Ange was?
He was 8th.
Yeah.
He finished 8th anyway. I don't know where he was at this point in the season.
He was on 37 points.
But this isn't a comparison between Mikel Arteta and Ange Postecoglou.
Who's doing a better job under the circumstances?
I think Ange has started life better at Spurs than Arteta started life better at Arsenal, but that's not the question here. The question is who is doing a better job or who has been the best manager from the start of the season till now.
Yeah.
And I think it pains me to say I think Arteta has done a better job because he's fighting with the best in the league.
Yeah, but that's what he did last season. So that's where Arsenal are at the moment in terms of like Arsenal are actually 6 points down as where they were last season. So, and Tottenham have made him a massive, not massive actually, but it's I don't know, we're 2 points better off than we were last season. But obviously last season we finished 8th. We're now in a top 4 race. In Ange's first few months, we lost Harry Kane as well, and we're playing, good football. So is there not a case there to say it's not who's doing better in the league, it's who's under the circumstances doing a better job for their club so far this season? I think there's a credible case to say that Arteta was in a title. In fact, Arteta was leading the league probably at this point last season, and they're worse off in terms of position they were. And Ange has really changed things around for Tottenham and really improved them in a different way.
Yeah, that's 100% spot on. But I think who you're looking at, who is doing a better job this season, it has to be Arteta because of what they're doing this season. They could realistically win the league, to be honest, and they're looking unbelievable. They're looking like the best team in the league over the past 5-6 games. I know the award isn't only about the last 5-6 games, but even when they have been playing poorly this season, they've been getting consistent results. And Ange Postecoglou, since the first 10 games, we haven't been consistently playing well throughout the whole season, in my opinion. So I think, as much as it pains me to say it, I think Arteta's doing a better job right now.
I mean, I don't think you would have said that 5 games ago about Arsenal playing consistently well.
I never said they've been playing consistently well. I've been saying they've been getting consistent results.
And we're still, what, 5th?
Fifth,
so we're
yeah.
getting consistent results as well.
But not as consistent as them.
Yeah, but they're in a different, as I said, they're in a different position. They were title challengers last year. That's where they're expected to be. We're not expected to be where we are, potentially.
Well, I think most Spurs fans would have said where we expect to be is probably 5th or 6th at the beginning of the season.
Spurs fans, maybe, but we were called deluded for saying we're going to finish 5th at the beginning of the season.
But that's our own expectations, 5th or 6th. That's what we're at right now.
Arsenal were in the title challenge and then they spent 100 million on Rice.
Yeah,
right? And they expected to be in a title race.
Well, I didn't think Arsenal were going to be in a title race this season. We both did our predictions.
Arsenal fans did.
A lot of them did. A lot of them didn't.
Most did.
Coming into the season, when we did our predictions, we didn't even put Arsenal in a title race. We said it's a shootout between Man City and Liverpool.
I said that. You didn't.
I said Arsenal 3rd.
Yeah, you said Arsenal at the beginning of the season, before we saw a few games. You said Arsenal will be in a title race with City.
No, I said Arsenal 3rd if you look at the predictions.
No, I remember. You put Arsenal 2nd.
No, I put Liverpool 2nd.
I put Liverpool 2nd.
I know, we both did.
No, we didn't. We didn't. Anyway. Yeah, I remember. But anyway,
remember.
It doesn't matter.
You remember wrong.
No, I don't. You look back at that. I'm saying not that we did a second prediction. That was when you put Liverpool 2nd.
Is that right?
Yeah. It was when the first one, right at the start, but before we saw a game. That was when we said Arsenal in the title race.
Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is, I think Arteta has been doing a better job this season. I think that's just clear for all to see.
Well, I think there's an argument to be made. I'd probably go side with Arteta anyway after all that, but I'm saying.
So what was the whole point?
I'm saying there's an argument to say that under the circumstances, I'm just putting forward the argument that you could easily say that Ange deserved it, and look, he won the award.
Ange is doing a brilliant job. There's no getting away from the fact he's doing a brilliant job. Just Arteta is doing a better job right now. That's just clear for everyone to see.
He's higher in the league, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, Vicario, we're not going to see what he had to say. Does he deserve goalkeeper of the year so far when you're looking at the other keepers? I think he does, to be fair. Areola, Leno, Mackenzie Arnold, who's in the Women's League, and Sam Johnston. I mean, Vicario definitely should top that pile.
Yeah. I mean, interesting, there's no Arsenal keeper there, but I guess who would it be? Raya? Or who's the other one? Ramsdale. Can't put either of them there. No. I think other than that, Vicario is well ahead of all the others. So he's been brilliant this season. But again, these awards are just so silly. I don't understand them. I don't get it.
They don't make sense.
No.
But yeah, that's it from our Tottenham update. Let's get into the preview for the game against Crystal Palace this weekend. Spurs do come into it with a few injury issues, with Richarlison, Pedro Porro looking like definitely to be missing the game. Pedro Porro is a massive loss coming into it, to be honest. Looks like Emerson will probably keep his spot at right back. Richarlison, how much of a miss is Richarlison coming into it? Son moves into the middle. I think a lot of people have been calling for that. So maybe people are getting their wishes.
Well, considering that we're now learning that he was injured, maybe there's a reason why he didn't have the best game against Wolves. He's obviously picked up a knee injury. Did he play 90 minutes or did he go off? I can't remember. He might have gone off. I think he did go, because I think Werner went up front, didn't he, for a bit?
Yeah.
So he did go off, must have been on like 70. But clearly we're now seeing maybe there was a reason for that. He didn't have a great game. And that was like before, when a lot of people criticising Richarlison, not really realising an injury. So clearly as similar to that. But look, we are going to put Son up front, looks like this game. I don't know if that's going to be the benefit of him or the team in terms of this kind of game, because we know Palace like to play a back three. Glasner's now in his second game. They beat Burnley 3-0. Good result, but at 0-0, they were the better team, but they weren't creating the good quality chances they did after Burnley went down to 10 men. And look, Glasner's a good manager. He did a brilliant job at Frankfurt. It's going to be a different kind of Palace. They're going to be full of energy. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to be, I wouldn't say on the front foot because he's still fairly pragmatic, but it's going to be very, very different to how they were under Roy. And they're going to be much more of a proactive team rather than just sitting back and waiting to be beaten like they were under Roy. So I'm expecting a very difficult game. But what I think does play into our hands is, as much as they're going to be changing it up, Eze will be back, but as Glasner is saying, but I don't think they have the players yet who's perfect for that kind of the way Glasner wants to play.
Yeah. They did look okay against Burnley when it was 11 on 11, but they did, like you say, come alive when that man got sent off, and then they started ripping them apart. When you're looking at the form of the two sides, there's not really much you can read into this form because of Palace getting the new manager change. They have got 3 points in the first game that Glasner was in charge. But with this Spurs form coming into it, I really hope these 2 weeks on the training ground are really going to stand us in good stead. We've had problems breaking down teams that play 3 at the back. Do you feel like those problems carry on this weekend?
Probably. I think less so, because I actually think when I look at, say, like Wolves' team and I look at Palace's team, I think the way Wolves played that back 3, it's going to be, they have the players more suited to that. For example, Neto Neto and Hwang in that front line on the counter. They have Nouri, Semedo in the wing backs. They got 3 very strong centre backs. They got those ball carriers in the middle who are very effective. So I look at that and I think they're really much more suited to combating us in that back 3. Now Palace played the back 3 a bit differently. Well, we've only seen it one game, but I'm looking at the profile of their players. I don't think, first of all, they're as good. And I don't think they're going to have there's much threat on the counter. It says here, I think Eze will be fit. So I do think he's going to play probably on the left instead of Edouard. But obviously, Ayu's there. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as like someone like Hwang or Neto. Mateta, he's actually a bit of a physical threat, Mateta, and he does cause a lot of chaos, which Man City found out when they played Palace. But I don't think he's got that much pace. Lerma and Wharton are doing okay, but I don't think they're as good at ball carrying as people like Lamina and João Gomez are.
But what they're really good at, those 2 midfielders, is breaking up the play and disrupting maybe what we're trying to do with our trying to fluid play, bring it out the back, playing out the back, and we're going to have to combat that because I've been really impressed with Wharton since he's joined Crystal Palace. And Jefferson Lerma, you know what you're going to get with him. You're going to get a player going at 1,000,000 miles per hour, fouls all the time. He's probably going to pick up a booking, but it's definitely going to be hard to play through them.
Yeah, I think it will be. And I think whereas I felt like with Wolves, their kind of 3 at the back is more of a 3-4-3. Palace's is probably going to be more of a 5-2-3 kind of. Like, it's going to be more, because I feel like Mitchell and Munoz, who's obviously started playing recently, he's looked quite decent at right wing back. Mitchell's a good player, don't get me wrong. I like Tyrick Mitchell. I do think he's more of a left back than a wing back. I don't see him being a wing back who's like that great going forward. I see him he's more of like a Reguilon type of player. He's not like I feel like Nouri is much better at dribbling, getting forward, being a bit of a nuisance. Mitchell's much more of a defensive left back, I feel. So I do feel like they're going to be very strong defensively. Glasner's going to be having them being very proactive, very compact, very organised. But I do feel like they'll be easier to deal with on the breakaway in the transition. So what that could lead to is Palace being penned in a bit more, whereas Wolves were able to get out and able to threaten us on the counter. I see less of that from Palace, but it's not to say they're not going to be a threat, because I do think they're going to be a threat. And also they're riding a bit of a wave at the moment. New manager, everything's very positive at the moment. Everything's probably looking great for them. Like this cloud has been lifted in terms of they actually see a future at Palace. There's Roy was very set in his ways, very old school. Glasner's giving fresh ideas, fresh approach to things. And there's just a new feel around Palace now. And that is probably the more worrying thing in compared to looking at how they're going to play and how they're going to set up and the players they're going to have. I look at their team and how they're going to set up, and I think even though we struggle against back threes, that team is beatable. I don't think they got the perfect profiles in their teams for what Glasner wants. For example, when Glasner was at Frankfurt, right, he had Kostic on that left wing back. He didn't have Mitchell. Mitchell's nowhere near a Kostic in terms of what he can offer in the final third. They had players like Kamada, they had Lundstrom, they had Mwani up front. Palace don't have anywhere near those kind of talents in there, apart from maybe Eze in their forward line. But they're riding a wave at the moment. And I think what we could be suffering from is this new manager bounce they could have, and maybe for the rest of the season, they might have they might start to revert to their mean in like 5 or 6 games. But in their first few games, just off the back of the win, I think they're going to come in here with fresh ideas and real fresh energy, and that's something to worry about.
Yeah, look, it is something to worry about, and it will be a much more difficult game than maybe what it was a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, before Glasner took charge. But when you look at it, there is no excuses to go and lose this game. We've had 2 weeks to prepare for it. We know the way Palace are going to set up for those 2 weeks, so he would have had a long time on the training ground. He would have known Richarlison and Porro were probably going to miss these games and be able to plan without them. So with the players that we've got being at home, coming up against a Palace side that are going to be full of energy, it is going to be harder, but I still don't think there's any excuses to lose this game. We have to go and get those 3 points.
Yeah, especially after losing to Wolves, and we've had a 2-week break now. Obviously, the excuses are running out. Everyone's coming back to full fitness. I know we've got a few injuries going into this game, but looking at the team we're going to have out, there's no excuses to have as poor a performance as we did against Wolves in this game, not create the amount of chances we did against Wolves. So as much as it's going to be a difficult game, and as much as they're going to come into this game full of confidence, we have to as well lay down. Look, first of all, we have to put pressure on Villa, who play in the 5:30 game against Luton. We have to really put pressure on them in terms of the top 4 race, and we have to show teams that we've learned from our mistakes from last week. We are improving as a team, and we can improve. And we haven't been playing consistently well for a while in terms of a game of 90-minute control. It's been very difficult for us to control games. A lot of the reason, is because not just because of injuries, we're giving away too many transitions, we're getting hurt on the counter. But I look at this Palace team, and the quality we're going to be facing in this game isn't going to be as high, but it's not to say it's going to be easier. It's just looking like Ayew, Mateta, they just don't have that kind of quality in the forward line. So
having said that, though, like Ayew's on really good run of form at the moment.
He is.
He's going through a bit of a purple patch, isn't he? I think 4 goals in his last 4 games.
Yeah, he is going through a purple patch.
And you look at Eze as well. He hasn't played for however long, and you know that Crystal Palace are always that much more dangerous when Eberechi Eze is on the pitch. He's got that star quality, doesn't he? That can hurt any team, not just us, any team in the Premier League.
Yeah. And he's brilliant, Eze, and he's obviously the one to watch. If we can stop him, I think we go a long way to stopping Palace. But having said that, that was maybe what it was like under Roy. I think under Glasner, it's going to be more about the system and the team rather than just relying on individual brilliance from Eze and Olise, which it was under Roy. So obviously, when you have a player with such high quality as Eze, he can make a difference even when Palace aren't playing well, for sure. But I feel like the Palace system is now going to be in a different way to what it was under Roy, and it's going to be a lot harder to deal with, and especially being in that back three. So I was looking at, a lot of the average positions of how Glasner likes to play 3-4-3, and those front three, the 2 wide forwards are almost like 2 number 10s. They like to tuck in. Obviously, you've got the 2 central midfielders, but so it's more like a 3-4-2-1 kind of like.
So a bit like the way we used to play under Conte.
Yeah, it's kind of very similar to Conte, to be honest. I have to, like, in terms of how he likes to play it. So, which isn't a bad thing. Conte's a great manager. I know it didn't work on Tottenham, but Conte's, his way of playing. You got to remember, come around March time last season, as much as we weren't playing well, we were still third or nearly 4th in league and getting results. So it's a very difficult formation to deal with. So it is very similar in terms of the way he sets up as someone like Conte was. They have their very nuanced differences, but Glasner, in terms of just in general how it's set up, is very similar to Conte. So I can see it being difficult for us to deal with, but if we can basically play the ball very quickly, if we can get that out of that numerical advantage in the centre, making sure that Wharton and Lerma not allowing them to break up play enough. If we can make sure Eze is not getting too involved in the play, and we can make sure that we're picking the ball up in between the lines and stretching their back line, I think that the game will be there. We just need to get Son as many chances as possible, and that will make the difference.
There's been a lot of talk with Spurs about the defensive solidity, how easy it is to create chances against us of late. You remember back in the first 10 games of the season where, yeah, fine, we were conceding a few goals, but we weren't conceding anywhere near as many chances as we're conceding now. And I think the last clean sheet we made in the league was back in December against Nottingham Forest away from home.
It's actually the opposite. We were still conceding chances, but we weren't actually conceding many goals.
Well, we were going through those games saying like, oh, Vicario's hardly had to do anything this game, in the first 10 games of the season.
We only conceded 9 goals in the first 10 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that's still quite a few goals, but not that many chances. I don't think we were conceding in those first 10 games, because I remember a lot of the times in the player ratings we were like, all right, Vicario did well today, but he didn't actually have that much to do. So why are we conceding so many chances now? What do we need to do to maybe stop that?
It's simple, or not simple, it's hard, but it's simple. Why I'm saying it's because we're not as good right now at controlling the game. So it means when we're on the ball, we were very good at controlling the game and keeping possession, progressing the ball while keeping the ball in those first 10 games. And when we were hitting, we were very good at penning the opposition in, and that meant that when they tried to transition us, we were rushing them into long passes and rushed attacks, which meant that Romero and Van de Ven could sweep up and stop those attack at source, basically. Now, their midfield is in the same dynamic for one reason or another. I know we had the game against Wolves with the same midfield, but that was the first time we've seen it since the first 10 games. We're not as good at keeping the ball. And we are, first of all, teams are starting to work out that if they keep their wingers wide, as soon as they hit the transition, they hit their wingers straight away. So that's something we have to deal with, that teams are working that out. Second of all, we're not, for some reason or another, Basuma, Bentancur, at the moment, haven't been as good when keeping the ball and progressing it like we were at the beginning of the season, which means that we're turning the ball over a lot more. And it means that the more chances you give the opposition to turn the ball over, the more chances you're going to allow them to get in. Now, Van de Ven can stop. If they're going to get in, basically, in the beginning of the season, they were getting in 2 or 3 or 4 times, let's say, and Van de Ven was like cutting it out, 3 out of those 4 times. Now they're getting in like 8 or 9 times, and Van de Ven's cutting out like 4 or 5, but there's still 4 times they're getting in now rather than the time before. So it's a lot harder to deal with at the moment, and it's a lot to do with ball possession, maybe teams figuring out where their wingers have to be positioned on the transition, and I think it's a lot to do with how we're keeping the ball and not progressing it in the same way we were at the beginning of the season. When beginning of the season, giving it to Basuma, he was able to carry the ball forward without losing it and get Tottenham up the pitch, and then that allows Tottenham to pen the opposition in. At the moment, we're not doing the same things, and it's a struggle. At the moment, we're keeping the ball, but we're not doing it in a way that's progressing it, and we're keeping it like going side to side, not progressing the ball forward, and it means when we're losing it, bam, they're in the transition rather than us penning them in, and it's causing us a lot of trouble.
That's what I keep saying, like with Basuma, we need to find a way where he can recapture that form of the first 10 games, because he was so pivotal, so vital to the way that we wanted to play, and we haven't been able to get back to those levels since basically he was on his top form. And you look at the first 10 games, I think we kept like 4 clean sheets in the first 10 games. The last 10 games, I think we've kept 1. And I think that's a very telling stat, to be honest. But you look at the head-to-head between these two clubs, we are on a very good run of form against them. 4 wins in a row, only 1 goal conceded in those 4 games as well. The last game that we did lose was Nuno's first loss as a Spurs manager, when we lost 3-0 to Crystal Palace. I mean, again, though, you can't really take too much from that, can you?
I don't think any of these games you can, because Glasner's going to be completely different approach for Palace. Obviously, we've had 1 game under Ange against Palace, but that was against a Roy team. We did win. It wasn't the best game, if I remember. I remember Palace had a bit of they had a bit of joy in the early exchange of the game. Vicario kind of made a few saves, and then we went on to win the game in the second half. So this game is going to be completely different. It's in a way, it's kind of hard to know what to expect from Palace and Glasner, because we've only seen 1 game. In that game, Burnley got a man sent off, so it's difficult to make too many judgments on that specific performance and kind of input it in. We don't know how that's going to correlate or translate into a game against a high quality team like Tottenham. Will it work or will it not? It's hard to know. So obviously we've got a great record against Palace, but this is a different kind of game, and it's hard to know what to expect.
Yeah, do you think with Sonny moving back into the middle this weekend, will that be a good thing for us? I mean, hopefully it'll be reignite that partnership that Maddison and Sonny did have in the earlier stage of the season. Yeah,
I hope so. I don't think necessarily it's going to be to our benefit in terms of, are we better off having Son there than Richarlison, who is a fully fit Richarlison? I'll probably say no. I'll probably say in this kind of game, you probably want Richarlison in there, just because if Palace do get into that mode where they're in a low block, it's going to be very difficult to break them down if we don't have a threat who's good at attacking crosses like Richarlison. But what I would say is early on in, the first 15 minutes, I was looking at a stat. I think Spurs are I think top or one of the highest in the league at scoring in the first 15 minutes. And that's very important in a game like this, to shake a team like Palace out of their rhythm, because if you allow them to settle in the game and get organised and get into their rhythm, they become very hard to break down. However, if you hit them very early, create a few chances, get a goal in the first 50 minutes, that completely disrupts their game plan and it gets them all disjointed. And I do think Son, in a weird way, is more capable of making that kind of impact early. So it's kind of like we're better off having him in that period where if we can get some very quick exchanges going, and if we can get Son in behind once or twice in that opening period, then it would be to our benefit. But if we don't take advantage of that period, like we haven't done recently, we've kind of started games early but not take advantage of that moment, and then we allow Palace to get settled, then all of a sudden it's going to switch to we're better off having Richarlison. So it kind of depends if he scores early or not.
Yeah, I think if he does get the chance, if we can create the chances for him, we know he'll gobble them up. That's the quality of the player and how much of a clinical finisher he is. But in terms of that starting lineup, who would be the best? I mean, we'll get into the predicted lineup in a minute, but who do you think would be the best to maybe combat that? Do you think Bissouma has to play in that number 6? Do you think Werner has to play at that left wing? I mean, we don't really have too much options, do we, for the left wing?
Yeah, I think we probably keep the midfield the same as last week. I know it didn't quite work, but I do think I'd be tempted in a weird way to go Maddison next to a Lo Celso or Kulusevski in this kind of game, because it just makes it more difficult for Palace to deal with the attacking options. But I would understand if Ange feels like, does that leave us too exposed? Can we really justify dropping Sarr right now when he's probably our most informed midfielder? Probably not. So I don't expect to see it, but I would be tempted to play that, because I feel like when you've got a team like Palace who are going to come and play a back 5, the best way to combat that is just get another offensive player in there who gives them something else to think about, who when they get into the final third will have something up their sleeve, like a through ball, a long shot, something like that. Which, look, I love Sarr. I think he's a brilliant midfielder. He's just not the guy you want to pick the lock in a perfect world. I know he can do it in moments, but I don't think he's a guy who on the edge of the box you would rather Sarr than a Lo Celso or Kulusevski in that kind of position. So I'd be tempted to go with 2 attacking mids, but I think I understand it. I think he's going to start off the game probably with Sarr in the middle. On the left, obviously Solomon's still out, which is really bad for him, unfortunately. So Werner has to be the guy on the left, and I need to see more from him.
Do you think there's a case maybe to start Kulusevski on the left and Johnson on the right?
Yeah, there's a case for it. Just because Werner last few games hasn't quite cut it. Kulusevski in his few roles on the left-hand side has looked fairly bright. I think he only played there once, actually. It was against Newcastle. He looked fairly bright, and he can maybe create chances. I would say it would be more worth, in a weird way, it's actually more worth having Kulusevski there if Richarlison was fit. Now that Werner's fit, now Richarlison's not fit and it's going to be Son, I think it's probably best just to keep Werner there, because I think Werner is more likely to be getting those low balls across the face than maybe Kulusevski is. But I think I would like to see it experimented. I would like to see Kulusevski start there just to see what it's like, but there's a reason why he tends not to pick him there, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Kulusevski will have a lot more quality in his end product from crossing, even from the left-hand side, even with those low-driven balls. I mean, Werner has just frustrated me so much since he's joined the club. I mean, we saw an initial couple of good games. He got a couple of assists right at the beginning. But since then, the Everton game comes to mind. The home game against, who was it, comes to mind. I can't remember who it was against.
Maybe?
Brighton, yeah. Where he was just getting the ball. He was beating his man. And then every time he beats his man, he just does nothing with it.
One thing is quite interesting to consider, which I haven't considered. We've all assumed that Son is going to go up front, right? But cast your mind back to when Rishi went off injured. he put Werner up front initially, and
didn't,
then Son
didn't
on the
last
left.
for too long though.
Didn't last for too long, but that was his initial thing to do. That was his initial thought, to put Werner up front. Now, why was that his initial thought? And is that something maybe he's considering doing, maybe going into this game?
I think if he would have kept him there for the rest of the game, then yes, I would have thought maybe. But because he switched it up so soon, I felt like maybe he thought it was the wrong move, and maybe he corrected it pretty soon after Werner went up front, because it literally lasted only about 5 minutes.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see if that's in his thoughts. I assume maybe he just felt, I don't know what he was thinking, but maybe he felt like, to be honest, I've always said it, that Werner's best games, Werner has always been at his best for Leipzig, that is, when he's been up front as a striker. Now, I think it's fair to say when he's been at Chelsea in the Premier League, his best performances have probably been off the left, just because when he's been up front, he's just missed so many sitters and stuff like that. But I've always felt like if you're gonna get the best version of Werner, it probably is up front. Maybe he felt like he'll give it a go, get him running in behind, stretching the defense, and see what happens. But obviously, as we saw, he didn't make any sort of impact. And I also think Son's all-round play, it's good, like his ability to bring other players into play. That's obviously a lot stronger than Werner's. Like his ability with his back to goal, even though Son's his ability with his back to goal isn't amazing, it's still going to be better than someone like Werner. So it will be interesting if he does start up front, what that looks like. But I do expect Son obviously to go in the forward line. Yeah,
definitely. And Jory with the members chat says, as good as Rishi has been, Son is better. Kuti and Van de Ven will have to provide the heading goals. We need one-touch fast football this game and more in-game management. And that's exactly what I want to see. Fast one-touch football. Against Wolves, it was just way too slow, just passing in that kind of U shape on the cross on the edge of the area. And we need to be more incisive. We need to be more clinical. And we need to be a lot more faster in our gameplay if we're going to go and win this game.
I think Son will definitely help with that, playing quicker. As much as I think I've given praise for Richarlison for his all-round game improving, it's improved. Don't get me wrong, but he's still not very good. His layoffs have improved and they're getting more accurate, but they're still not very quick.
Yeah.
They're more accurate, but he still has to take a touch. He has to, lay off. Son can do a lot quicker. The football can be a lot more fluid with Son there. So that will definitely help. But we just have to make sure we're not allowing Palace to get into that settled mode where they're, deep in their own penalty area. Like Wolves did, we allowed them to get in that settled mode. And that's when we fell into trouble. So we have to make sure we come flying out the blocks and we take advantage of those early moments.
Yeah, an early goal will definitely help us massively in this game. We'll force Crystal Palace to come out that little bit more to try and hurt us. But that is the match preview. What is your score prediction?
I am going to go 2-1. I do think Palace will probably get some joy on the counter. I don't think they're going to be as much of a threat as Wolves were, but I do see them being some sort of a threat with the back three. I'm just banking on the fact that we're going to have more quality than them. We're going to be out there to lay down a marker that we can, get back to the football we were trying to play first half of the season, and hopefully this 2-week break would have done us well in terms of just regrouping, and after a poor display and result last time out, we're going to come in here with new energy. So I don't think it'll be easy, but I do see us just scraping the win 2-1.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 3-2. That's what I said in my pre-match predictions on the ball, and I think that it's going to be an incredibly difficult game. They're going to come into it full of confidence, a new lease of life under Oliver Glasner. We'll have to really watch out for Eberechi Eze. I think he can hurt, like I said, any team, never mind Spurs. And I do think we're going to concede a couple of goals on the day, but hopefully with Son up front with the clinical edge, I believe that we will be able to score at least just one goal more than them and take home the 3 points. And like I said, there's just no excuses to lose this game. We lost against Wolves, and I don't think there was an excuse to lose that game either, to be honest. But with 2 weeks on the training ground now, Ange have had to come up with a real plan to hurt this Crystal Palace side and to hurt a team that plays through at the back. So I'm going to go 3-2. Sim is going for 2-1. Let me know your score predictions in the comment section below. But let's get into our predicted lineup. And Ange has been talking in terms of the injury news coming into this game, and it doesn't look good.
Yeah, so Richarlison is out for, he told the press conference 3 to 4 weeks. He told Tottenham Spurs official between 2 and 3 weeks. So you can make up your mind which one you believe. All we know is he's definitely injured. He's not going to be available this weekend, and probably until the international break, at the very least, he won't be available. So that's not great news, especially with the form he's been in. Pedro Porro, he said he's battling to be fit for this game, but he's probably going to come too soon, and he's probably a week away, so he's not going to be fit. He said Ryan Sessegnon had a major setback with the, obviously he's got he said he won't be seen again this season, and obviously he had surgery on his right hamstring, so he's not available. He said Manor Solomon they hope to have him back at an earlier date, but he's had a few setbacks, and he's still, quote, a long way away from joining the group. So he's not going to be available this game, which was rumoured a couple after the Wolves game that he would be available. So really sad to hear that he's still a long way away. But in more positive news, obviously Destiny was rumoured to be out of this game. He was out of the Wolves game, but he said he has trained all week and should be available for tomorrow. So that's a bit of positive news there.
Yeah, I think that Manor Solomon news is a massive blow to us, to be honest, because I feel like in terms of the wingers that we do have, he's the one that actually has the attributes that Ange really wants to see from a winger. And I was really excited at the prospect of him coming back into the side, or as an option anyway. So I think that one's a massive blow for us. But let's get into predicted lineup and start off with the London goalkeeper of the year, Vicario.
Yeah, and look, I guess the most obvious things to point out is in this kind of game, set pieces. I think Palace, I believe, scored their opening goal against Burnley from a set piece, and I actually think they created a lot of chances from set pieces. So that's definitely something to watch out. In fact, we've conceded the 4th most XG from set pieces this year in the league. So Vicario is going to have to be on his game from that, and any kind of counter-attack he can stop will be very helpful. But hopefully he's not so busy in this one.
Yeah, let's hope so. That's Vicario. And go right back. We're going to side with Emerson Royale, seeing as Porro is out injured. Is there potentially a case for someone else to fill in there, or do we think Royale's going to straight back in?
I hope so, to be honest. If I was Ange, considering how Emerson played last game, I wouldn't play him, and I'd maybe get a bit creative. Maybe put Sarr there, put another midfielder in, and maybe even put Sarr there and go with 2 number 10s. That would be also something interesting. However, I don't know if Ange is that cutthroat that after one bad game, considering he hadn't played for so long, he's just going to completely chuck him out. So considering he is our other senior right back, I do think he comes back in and continues to play. But if he has another stinker, Ange has to take responsibility for that.
Look, there is a case actually, like we heard the Dragusin's agent, didn't we, in midweek or last week, saying he didn't promise, but he said that Dragusin by the end of the season will play with enough minutes to be fine for the Euros and have enough match practice for the Euros. So maybe he knows something that we don't. Maybe there is a case of Romero going right back and Dragusin stepping in right centre back. Yeah,
that's what I would do. If Dragusin is going to come in, I would definitely keep him centre and put Romero on the right. Or maybe you can go with a back 3 and match up Palace but match them up in a way which gives you the numerical advantage in certain areas. So maybe that's a way to move forward with it, which would be very interesting.
I do think Romero's got all the attributes to play that inverted right back role. Like, why not? Because he's more or less in that position in terms of the centre midfield all the time anyway. So I would love to see Romero maybe fill in at right back this weekend, but we are going for Romero as the right centre back.
Yeah, no surprises there. He's going to be very important for him to deal with a very physical striker like Mateta. I don't think Mateta's going to be trying to run in behind, because I think he knows that Van de Ven will have that. So I do think he's going to be trying to get the ball to feet and trying to hold the ball up for his teammates. And it's going to be more on Romero, I feel like, to deal with those kind of situations. So Mateta can be quite a handful if you let him. So he's going to have quite a game cut out for him, Romero, I think.
What are we saying? Eberechi Eze to play on the left wing?
Probably, yeah.
So, I mean, if he is on the left wing, even more so why Romero should probably go right back, to be honest. Because I fear for Eze coming up against a Royale.
Yeah, I think it's more left number 10 kind of thing, how I see Glasner playing it. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be periods where he'll find himself on the left wing. So yeah, I think you're right there. Although I don't mind Emerson defensively. So I'm not worried about him up against Eze. I'm just more worried about him giving the ball away to Eze.
I thought he was poor with dealing with Neto for the most part, to be honest, though, last week.
Yeah, that's also true.
Left centre back is obviously going to be Mickey van de Ven, probably the standout performer of the last month, and he's going to be so vital again.
Well, he got Arm Player of the Month, didn't he?
Yeah.
Van de Ven. Yeah, he's very, very important. We know that anything that, especially in the transitions, he's been so vital. And if it wasn't for him, the chances we conceding recently will be probably doubled if it wasn't for Van de Ven. That's how important he is. So we know he's very, very crucial. So has to play.
Left back to make up that back four, be a welcome return to Destiny Udogie, because I feel like maybe if one of Porro or Udogie play, it's just so much. But like when we had Davis and Emerson there, we just lose a whole element to our game. But at least if one of them's there, that deficit is halved.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully he's 100% fit going into this game. Obviously, we know we've got a big game against Villa next week and we need him for that one. So we don't want to take any risks. But it sounds like Ange wants him available, thinks he's available. That's going to be really important. And especially with the way Glasner likes to play with his back five, he's going to have his work out dealing with Ayew and potentially dealing with a wing back as well. So it's not going to be easy for Udogie, but hopefully we can maybe this break. I know he's been injured. Maybe this little bit of a break will get him re-energized.
Yeah, he has trained all week, so I don't think there's probably any excuses not to play him. Moving into the number 6, we are going to go for Yves Bissouma. There is a case for Rodrigo Bentancur. Neither are playing unbelievably well at the moment, but I just feel like Bissouma probably has the shirt at the moment, playing a tad better than Bentancur.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as well, Bissouma has more the characteristics that Ange wants in that position. So I do think he'll persist with him. I think as well, it's important that Ange has seen that Bissouma can do that role in the number 6. And apart from 20 minutes against Villa, we haven't seen it from a whole game out of Bentancur yet. Not to say he can't do it, but I'm just saying we haven't seen it yet. So I do think
was Bentancur in the 6 that game? Was he not in the 8?
Against Villa, he was in the 6.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, because we played Kulusevski next to the Celso.
Right, yeah.
So I do think he's going to persist with Bissouma for now. But if Bissouma doesn't drastically improve, I don't see a reason why that can't change, in the next game or so. But I think, look, I actually don't think he was terrible against Wolves, but still not what we want and what we need from that position. So I want to see a more confident Bissouma here.
That's the thing, though. Like, he needs to be getting back to those levels for the first 10 games. That's what we need our 6 to provide, and he's just not doing that. Yeah, he's doing well in terms of breaking up play, but in terms of going the other way and really helping us in terms of dictating the tempo of the game, pace setting of the game, and hurting the opposition, he's just not doing that.
Yeah, and the problem with him is his passing is quite safe. It's not like he doesn't have the most adventurous passing range. So if he's not doing that risk taking when it comes to his dribbling, then all of a sudden he just becomes a bit too safe. And that we need someone who's a bit more of a risk taker.
Yeah.
And if he's not going to do that, then he needs to up his passing.
Yeah, absolutely. On the right-hand side of the midfield, we're going to go for Pape Matar Sarr, who's playing really well at the moment. Didn't have the greatest game against Wolves, to be fair, but apart from that, since he's come back from the AFCON, he's been brilliant.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with Sarr. Again, I said it before, I would be tempted to play Sarr right back potentially and maybe put a number 10 next to Madison, Madison Bissouma. But we think I don't see Ange actually doing that. I'll be surprised if he does. I'll be impressed if he does. Maybe it shows an ability to be a bit more adaptable. But I do think Sarr will definitely start one way or another. I do expect it to be in centre mid, and he's got a big role to play, making sure that Adam Wharton, who's been quite influential in recent weeks, doesn't gain a foothold in this game.
And then to make up that midfield 3 will obviously be James Maddison on the left-hand side of that 3. I was quite disappointed with him in the Wolves game, because when you've got a team sitting as low as Wolves did, we need someone special to pick that lock, and he's got it in his locker. Not even just to pick the lock, but maybe just take a shot from 25 yards, 30 yards. We know he's got that in his locker as well, and he just didn't do that. Yeah,
that was probably his worst game since his return. I actually think he's been pretty good since his return, but that was a massive step backwards, unfortunately. Need him to get back to kind of how he was at the beginning of the season. We know how effective he can be. He's obviously a wonderful player. And in this kind of game, it's very important that when he's in the box, he's looking to draw foul, look to draw penalties, looking to weave in between those challenges with little space, because he's one of the best midfielders at doing that. So that's a really important skill when you're trying to break down the low block.
Absolutely. So that's Bissouma, Pape Matar Sarr and Maddison in the middle 3. Moving over to the right wing, we're going to side with Dejan Kulusevski. There is a chance Brennan Johnson could fill in there, but I feel like with what like provide, the way they set up, I just feel it's much more suited to Dejan Kulusevski.
I think so. And obviously he did score in the last game, albeit it wasn't his best performance. He did get a nice goal. And I think when we're trying to break down this low block of Palace, I think it's going to be more important to have someone like Kulusevski there being creative, getting touches around the box rather than Johnson, who, gives the ball away a lot. Unfortunately, right now, where space is going to be restricted as well. The only thing I would say is where Johnson would have his benefit is if, Werner has the ball on the left, Johnson's going to be there at the back post, and that can be very invaluable when you're playing a team like Palace. So we need Kulusevski to be doing that kind of role if we get that opportunity.
Yeah, I guess it provides a good option as well coming off the bench late in games. We've seen how that can, how many times has Johnson done that in the last few minutes of the game, just find himself at the back post and score a goal. But in the number 9, we are going for Heung-min Son. A lot of people have been calling for this for a while now, and now they get their wish.
Yep. I don't think it's the perfect game for it, but it's needs must. Richarlison is injured, so someone has to play there, and I think Son's obviously the next best thing. And to be fair, 9 goals in 12 games up front, and he also scored against Palace, didn't he, at the Selhurst Park? So showed he can do it in that kind of game, and it's going to be crucial. Hopefully, it really helps us play a bit more fluidly and pass and move a bit quicker. I think that could help, but let's just hope that he doesn't get crowded out like sometimes he can do when he's playing in the number 9 position.
And then to make up that final 11 on the left-hand side, with Solomon being out, I think Timo Werner comes back into the side.
Yep. Obviously, no other option to play there unless you want to get a bit creative. Or they've still got Brian Hill, I guess, but I don't think Andrew would want to put him there. Well, we've only got Werner for a limited amount of games, so he's going to play on the left-hand side. And hopefully, look, we haven't seen him link up with Sonny yet. Maybe the fact that they're both, quick attackers who like to play the ball on the ground a bit more, maybe that will help him get the ball, bring him into the game a bit more than he has been recently. So, look, I'm excited to see how the dynamic will affect both of them, but I need to see more from Werner when he gets in those positions to, provide quality in the final third.
So let's run through that lineup with you guys one last time. So it's Vicario in goal, Emerson Royale right back, Destiny Udogie left back, Romero and Van de Ven in the centre-back positions, with Bissouma, Maddison and Sarr filling in as that number 3 in midfield. Kulusevski and Werner supporting Heung-min Son. In terms of our predictions, I am going for 3-2 to Spurs. Sim is going for 2-1 to Spurs. And that is your predicted lineup. Ange's press conference is on the channel now, so go and check that out. And if you are new around here and you don't know, we are on podcasting platforms as well. We are Tottenham TV on Spotify, as well as written content on WeAreTottenhamTV.com. So go and check that out. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you all very soon. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.